Okay, so when we left off, we were just finishing up our activity node diagram. Okay, so we have made it all the way to activity H from our task table, okay, which left us two final activities to add to our diagram. Okay, so we'll start with I, and we'll just finish up here. Okay, so I has prerequisite H, so H is up here. Okay, so we'll just add in our I, okay, as well as our arrow, okay, into level 4. Okay, H was in level 3, so I goes into level 4. And then finally, activity J has G and I as its prerequisites. So G and I are both in level 4, so we're going to have to add in a new level. Okay, so level 5. Okay, and so we will add in our activity J. Okay, and we have an arrow coming from I and an arrow coming from G. Okay, so we are pretty much at the end. All of our activities are into our diagram now. Okay, the last final step is just as we had our start box. Okay, we're going to add in a box for the end. There we go. Okay, and so from here, okay, we have our arrow from J. Okay, so the one thing we have to be careful about is J is not the only task at the end of the process. Okay? If we look down to activity F here, activity F does not have any arrow coming out of it. Okay, so what that means is that activity F is the end of a production chain, or whatever it is that this task table represents. Okay, so after in this chain of events, F is the final link in that chain. Okay, so after F, F is also the end. So from F, we go to the end as well, because we can't finish the task, whatever it is we're doing, without completing F first. Okay, so F and J both lead into the end box. Okay. Okay, so now that we've finished our sketch of our diagram, okay, before we take the actual diagram any further, what I'm going to go back and do is take a look at our task table and fill in this empty column that I have for the expected time. So if you read through the package you were given, you will have read that our expected time is actually a weighted average. Okay? It's a weighted average between the optimistic time, the most likely time, and the pessimistic time. Okay? And so if you're reading, what these times actually represent is the optimistic time, okay, is the length of time that it would take that particular activity if absolutely nothing went wrong. Everything went exactly the way that it should be and everything got done in the most efficient manner possible, okay, it would take the optimistic time. Okay? Pessimistic time, obviously then, is the complete opposite. If every single possible thing in this particular activity went wrong, okay, or performed poorly, okay, it would take the pessimistic time. So this is the longest possible time that it would take to complete. Okay, and then obviously, as it says, the most likely time is somewhere in the middle. Okay, but when we're doing our analysis, we have 3 times here for a single activity. Okay, we want to convert these into a single time. Okay, so what we do is we take a weighted average. Okay, and if you remember in the reading, okay, we gave a formula of this, okay, where t is our expected time, O is our optimistic time, M is our most likely, P is our pessimistic time. Okay, so this is our weighted average. So if you remember back to our first unit, okay, so the optimistic time and the pessimistic time both have an invisible weight here of 1. Okay? The most likely time is given a much higher weight because that is the most likely. So we want to have this weight more heavily in the calculation. Okay? And then we divide by 6. And the reason for that is, if you remember our formula for weighted average, okay, we take the weights times the value and then divide it by the total weight. Right? So there's a weight of 1 here, a weight of 1 here, a weight of 4 here. So 1 plus 4 plus 1 is equal to 6, which is where this 6 comes from. Okay? Okay? So let's do the expected time for activity A. Okay? So we have our optimistic time, which is 4. Okay. We have our most likely time, which is 5. Okay. And we have our pessimistic time, which is 12. And I'm running a little bit out of room here. That's okay. 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 And so when we fill that in, okay, we're going to get that T is equal to 6. Okay? So we have our expected time of 6, so we can go ahead and add that into that column. Okay, so for activity A, our expected time is 6 days. Okay, or whatever the unit of time in this case happens to be. Okay, all right, so we can do that same calculation, okay, for each activity in the table. Okay, so what I would like you to do now is just to pause the video for a couple minutes and try to fill out the expected times yourself. Okay, and then when you press play, I will fill in the rest of the boxes and you can compare your answers. Okay, so hopefully you were able to complete those calculations without any difficulty. So you take a quick second to compare your answers to what I have here. Okay, so we had done A together and had an expected time of 6. So B has 6 as well. So C is 3, D is 10, E is 6, F is 4, G is 3, H is 8, I is 4, and J is also 4. Okay, so those expected times, those are going to come in handy in a few minutes. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go back down to our sketch of our activity node diagram that we did here. Okay, and what we are going to do is now that we have this rough sketch of how we want our diagram to sort of flow, okay, we are going to replace these circular nodes, okay, with the more formal activity flow diagram, okay, that we can fill in our values for to calculate our critical path. Okay, so the way that we're going to do that is we are going to replace the circular nodes, okay, with rectangular boxes that we're going to fill in. Okay, and so our rectangular boxes are going to have this sort of configuration to them. Okay, so this box is going to be our key. Okay, and just like a map has a key, our diagram is also going to have a key. So each node up here is going to be replaced, okay, with a rectangular box like this. Okay. Now when we do our actual diagram, they're not going to have letters in these top and bottom boxes. Okay, that's what the key is for, to let us know what the numbers that we'll be putting in there represent. Okay, so let's write ourselves this key here. Okay, so we have 6 quantities, well 7 if you include the one in the middle, that we have to fill in each box. Okay, so our ES stands for the earliest start. Oops. Okay, so the earliest start time. Okay. D stands for duration. Okay, so duration in this case means the same thing as the expected time. Okay, in PERT, okay, the distinguishing feature of PERT is our 3 times that we were given in our task table. Our optimistic time, our most likely time, and our pessimistic time. Okay, that's the distinguishing feature of PERT. Those numbers come from estimates. Okay, if we weren't using PERT, if we were just using straight up CPM method, okay, we would just have a duration time, because CPM is used for when you've done that task so many times that you pretty much know how long it's going to take. So you can just use that as your duration. PERT method is used when you're doing a task, usually a one-off. So you've never done it before, so you can only estimate how long certain activities are going to take, which is why you're giving 3 estimated times. Okay, so in this case, D stands for duration, which in our case of the PERT analysis is the same thing as expected time. Okay, so EF, okay, is our earliest finish time. Okay, so A thing in the middle is just whatever the activity is. Okay, so we're just labeling our activities letters, so that's no big deal. Okay, LS stands for the latest start time. Okay, S stands for slack. Okay, and if you've read the handout, you will have seen that term already. But if not, I'll explain that shortly. And LF stands for the latest finish time. Okay, so this is going to be our key. Okay, so it's going to let us know, so we have something to reference, so we know what each of our numbers mean. Okay, so just as we wrap up this part of the video, okay, so I'm going to replace, as I said, each node in our sketch diagram, each circular node, with a box that looks like that. Okay, so obviously I'm going to start with, when we start with, each of our boxes is going to be empty. Okay, so I'm going to start with an empty box similar to this. Okay, so each box is going to replace one of these circular nodes. Okay, so between this video and the next, okay, take a second and replace all of your circular nodes with these boxes, and all you can do for now is just add in the activity name, the activity label, into this middle box, this middle space. Okay, and then when we pick up with part 3, okay, I will show you how to fill in each of these values.